In a world that often demands quick responses and constant validation, silence can be a powerful tool. We live in an age where we are expected to have an opinion on everything, to constantly contribute to the conversation, and to react in real time to every situation. But what if we step back, embrace stillness, and let silence be our response instead of the endless chatter that so often fills the space around us? There is a profound strength in choosing not to speak, not out of fear or uncertainty, but out of a deep understanding that silence holds its own power. Silence is often misunderstood in a world that constantly demands our attention, words, and actions. We are taught that in order to succeed, be heard, or make an impact, we must speak up, assert ourselves, and be constantly engaged. Yet silence, when used intentionally, can provide a deeper form of clarity that words alone cannot offer. It's in the quiet moments that we have the opportunity to connect with ourselves on a deeper level, to pause and reflect, and to find the answers we seek within. In this silence, we find clarity not just about the world around us, but about who we are, what we want, and how we wish to navigate the complexities of life. When we are constantly caught up in the noise of daily life, whether it's the distractions of our responsibilities, the demands of our relationships, or the constant flow of information, it becomes difficult to hear our own inner voice. We find ourselves reacting rather than responding, driven by external forces instead of our own inner wisdom. Silence offers us the space to step back from the noise, to create a boundary between ourselves and the outside world, and to reconnect with what truly matters. When we allow ourselves to be still, we create the opportunity to listen not only to the world around us, but more importantly, to listen to the voice within that often gets drowned out in the rush of everyday life. The beauty of silence is that it allows us to reflect on our experiences, our emotions, and our thoughts without the pressure to immediately respond. In a conversation, for example, how often do we find ourselves already preparing our next response while the other person is still speaking, rather than truly listening to what they are saying? Silence challenges us to break free from this pattern, to simply listen without the need to interject or correct. In those moments of silence, we are given the chance to fully absorb the message, to understand it from a deeper place, and to respond in a more thoughtful and deliberate manner. The silence between words is not empty, it's full of possibility, full of understanding, and full of meaning. When we give ourselves permission to be silent, we open up the space to process our own emotions and thoughts. In times of emotional turbulence, it can be easy to react impulsively, to lash out in anger, or to retreat in fear. But if we can learn to pause, to breathe, and to remain silent for a moment, we create an opportunity to calm the storm within. Silence gives us the space to observe what we are feeling, to understand the source of those feelings, and to decide how we wish to respond. Rather than being ruled by our emotions, we can become more in control of them. We can choose how to act, not from a place of reactive emotion, but from a place of considered reflection. In this way, silence becomes a tool for emotional regulation, allowing us to respond to life's challenges with greater composure and wisdom. The power of silence also lies in its ability to reveal clarity. When we step away from the noise and distractions, we often find that the answers we seek are not external, they are within us. The world may try to tell us what we should think, what we should believe, and how we should act. But it's in the quiet moments that we can hear our own truth, untainted by the opinions of others. Silence provides a break from the constant input, allowing us to sift through the noise and connect with what truly resonates with us. In these moments, clarity emerges not as something that is given to us, but as something that we discover within ourselves. We realize that the answers to many of our questions have been there all along, waiting for us to stop, listen, and allow them to surface. In our fast-paced world, we are often taught that silence equals emptiness or weakness. We fear that by remaining silent, we may be overlooked, misunderstood, or dismissed. But in reality, silence holds tremendous strength. It requires a great deal of courage to remain silent in a world that constantly demands our engagement. Choosing silence, especially in moments of pressure or conflict, demonstrates a deep sense of self-confidence. It is not about avoiding confrontation or withdrawing from life's challenges, rather, it is about choosing to respond from a place of intention and clarity. Silence becomes a form of power because it disrupts the expectation that we must always speak, explain, or justify ourselves. It challenges the norms that value loudness and instant responses over thoughtful reflection and measured action. Silence is also a powerful tool in communication. We often think of communication as something that happens through words, but silence is just as important, if not more so, in conveying messages. In a conversation, silence can speak volumes. It can communicate understanding, empathy, and presence. When we remain silent in the face of someone's vulnerability, we are sending a message that we are fully present with them, that we are listening without judgment, and that we are offering a safe space for them to express themselves. Silence allows us to truly connect with others, not through the things we say, but through the things we don't say. In moments of shared silence, we can experience a profound sense of connection as we come together in the absence of words. Moreover, silence provides us with the opportunity to regain perspective. It's easy to become caught up in the intensity of a situation, to become overwhelmed by emotions, or to lose sight of the bigger picture. In those moments, silence acts as a reset button. It gives us the space to step back, breathe, and see things from a new perspective. What seemed urgent or overwhelming in the heat of the moment may appear less significant after we've taken the time to reflect in silence. The clarity that comes from this pause allows us to make decisions with a clearer mind and a more grounded sense of self. The gift of silence is that it is always available to us, no matter the circumstances. We can choose silence in any moment, regardless of the noise and chaos around us. It is a tool that we can use to center ourselves, to create space for clarity, and to connect with our deepest truths. In embracing silence, we begin to recognize that we don't need to fill every moment with words or actions. We can be present in the stillness, allowing it to guide us toward greater understanding, greater peace, and greater wisdom. By choosing silence, we empower ourselves to navigate life with intention and to respond with the clarity that only stillness can provide. Silence has the power to shift the dynamics in any situation, often in ways we don't immediately recognize. When we choose silence instead of speaking out, we send a message that speaks louder than any words could. It can disrupt the flow of expectations, especially in a world that constantly demands answers, responses, and engagement. People are often conditioned to expect immediate reactions, verbal responses, and explanations. Silence challenges that conditioning. It creates space for people to reconsider their assumptions, their judgments, and their expectations. By choosing not to respond right away, we show that we are not driven by the need to conform to social expectations or the pressure to have an opinion on everything. We are not merely reacting to the noise around us, but instead choosing to hold space for what truly matters. This choice can be confusing to others because they may expect us to fill the silence with words, to justify ourselves, or to assert our views. But in those moments, our silence is a powerful statement. We don't need to prove anything. We don't need to validate ourselves through constant chatter or performative actions. Our silence tells the world that we are comfortable in our own skin and that we trust our own instincts, even if those instincts don't require a vocal expression. In any situation where tensions are high or emotions are running strong, the decision to remain silent can be a calming force. When everyone else is reacting out of emotion, silence can serve as a grounding presence. It allows the room to settle, the intensity to fade, and the energy to shift. People may feel the need to fill the space with words, but the quietness can create a sense of pause that offers everyone involved a moment to breathe and think. Instead of getting swept up in the emotional currents of the moment, silence helps maintain emotional regulation and mental clarity. This can be especially powerful in situations of conflict or misunderstanding, where silence offers the chance to process and avoid further escalation. Choosing silence also signals that we are not afraid of discomfort or the unknown. Many people feel uneasy when faced with silence because it creates a gap in the expected flow of conversation. Silence makes people uncomfortable because it forces them to confront what isn't being said, to sit with their own thoughts, and to question their own assumptions. By remaining silent, we create an opportunity for others to reflect on their own position, their own beliefs and their own actions. It's in these moments of discomfort that growth can occur, both for ourselves and for those around us. Moreover, silence reflects an internal strength and confidence that is not dependent on external validation. When we don't feel the need to fill the air with our thoughts or opinions, it reveals an important truth: we don't rely on the approval of others to feel validated. This kind of silence comes from a place of self-assurance. It's not about withholding information out of defensiveness or fear, but rather about asserting that we don't need to perform or over-explain ourselves. Our value is not contingent upon how much we say or how often we speak. Instead, our silence becomes a declaration of self-worth, showing that we are secure in who we are without the need for constant reassurance. Choosing silence also invites others to reflect on the power of presence. In a world that often values volume and visibility, those who remain quiet challenge the status quo. Our presence, when silent, speaks for itself. It invites others to consider the significance of stillness and the power it holds. We no longer feel the pressure to speak just to be heard, but instead, our presence alone carries weight. People are drawn to that quiet strength, often unsure of what to make of it, but ultimately moved by its authenticity. Silence breaks down the need to perform or prove ourselves, allowing us to show up as we truly are, free from the constraints of external expectations. In this way, silence becomes an act of rebellion against the noise of the world. It forces others to reconsider their assumptions about what it means to engage, to be heard, or to communicate. Silence challenges the idea that we must constantly be speaking, performing, or seeking validation to have value. It forces us to reimagine what it means to truly be present and to communicate not through words, but through our very being. Silence reveals the power of just being. And in doing so, it encourages others to embrace stillness as a source of strength, reflection, and authenticity. Choosing silence in the face of external pressure or emotional triggers can feel counterintuitive, especially in a society that celebrates constant activity, instant responses, and the need to fill every gap with words. But in reality, silence is an incredibly powerful tool, one that can serve as a protective shield for our inner peace and emotional well-being. In moments when we might feel the urge to react impulsively, silence becomes a conscious choice to hold space for ourselves, to reflect, and to prevent ourselves from being swept away by the tide of emotions or external demands. It is easy to fall into the trap of reacting immediately when we feel threatened, misunderstood, or frustrated. Our instinct often pushes us to defend ourselves, to clarify our position, or to fight for our right to be heard. These knee-jerk responses are born from a place of fear of being wrong, of being judged, of being ignored. But when we choose silence, we break that cycle of fear-based reactions. Silence in those moments is not a sign of weakness or avoidance, it is an act of strength and self-preservation. It allows us to step away from the immediate emotional pull and take a moment to regain our composure, our clarity, and our sense of self. When we remain silent in these charged moments, we give ourselves the time and space to reflect on what is truly happening. Rather than immediately engaging in conflict or falling into the trap of defending ourselves, silence gives us the opportunity to pause and observe. It creates room for us to assess the situation more clearly without being clouded by the rush of emotions that might otherwise dictate our response. In that stillness, we can recognize that our initial reaction may not be the most helpful or constructive one. Instead of feeding into negativity or escalating a situation, silence allows us to gain perspective on what truly matters. It is often in these pauses, in the moments of quiet, that the clarity we need to respond thoughtfully emerges. Silence also offers us the opportunity to reflect on our own emotions and motivations. Often when we feel triggered by an external event or comment, our immediate reaction is to focus on the other person, to fixate on their words or actions. We may even feel justified in expressing our anger or frustration in return. However, when we choose silence, we shift the focus away from the other person and turn inward. This inward focus allows us to explore what is truly driving our emotions. Are we reacting out of fear or insecurity? Are we projecting past wounds onto the current situation? By remaining silent, we give ourselves the opportunity to understand the root cause of our emotional reaction and decide whether it is worth responding to at all. In moments of silence, we also create the space to protect our inner peace. Emotional triggers, whether they come from external events, challenging relationships, or unresolved issues, have the potential to disturb our sense of calm. If we react impulsively or engage in conflict, we may inadvertently disrupt our inner harmony. Silence serves as a safeguard, allowing us to preserve our emotional equilibrium and avoid becoming entangled in unnecessary drama. It is a way of setting a boundary, saying to ourselves and others that we are not willing to sacrifice our peace for the sake of immediate gratification or external validation. The strength that comes with choosing silence lies in its ability to communicate without words. In a world where words often feel like the only valid form of communication, silence can be an equally powerful expression of self. When we hold our ground and refuse to speak from a place of anger or fear, we send a clear message: we are not governed by the immediate emotional turbulence, and we are not seeking approval through our words. This kind of silence speaks volumes about our sense of self-worth and our understanding of our own value. We don't need to prove ourselves through words. Our silence itself is a form of assertion, a declaration that we are confident enough to stand still in the face of discomfort and uncertainty. Choosing silence also challenges the societal norms that place a premium on constant verbal engagement. In many cultures, there is an expectation that we must always be speaking, always be presenting our opinions, and always be visible in some way. Silence, however, disrupts this expectation. It challenges the notion that our worth is tied to how much we speak or how often we make ourselves heard. Instead, silence invites us to embrace the idea that we are valuable, not because of our words, but because of our presence. In remaining silent, we communicate that we are enough as we are, without needing to be constantly on or performing for others. Furthermore, silence invites others to reconsider their assumptions about us. In a world where people often fill silence with their own discomfort or insecurities, our choice to remain silent can serve as an invitation for them to reflect on their own thoughts, beliefs, and behaviors. It can create a moment of tension, a space where people are forced to examine why they expect us to speak or react in a particular way. This can be a powerful tool for challenging societal norms and helping others recognize that they, too, have the option to choose silence over reaction. It encourages them to reflect on the power of presence and the value of listening, rather than just speaking. There is also a deep wisdom that can emerge from silence, particularly when we choose it as a way of creating space for thoughtfulness. In the rush of daily life, it's easy to become overwhelmed by the constant demands for our time and energy. We are inundated with information, expectations, and opinions, all of which can make it difficult to hear our own inner voice. But silence allows us to tune out the noise and focus on what truly matters. In the stillness, we are able to hear our own thoughts more clearly, to access our inner wisdom, and to reconnect with our deeper values and desires. This clarity that comes from silence is not something that can be rushed or forced. It is a natural byproduct of allowing ourselves the time and space to pause, reflect, and simply be. When we choose silence, we also model an important lesson for others that it is okay to not have all the answers, to not speak immediately, and to take the time we need to process and reflect. In a world that often values speed and immediacy, our silence can serve as a reminder that there is power in patience and thoughtfulness, and in taking the time to understand before reacting. Silence teaches us that we don't always have to respond to every situation with words. Sometimes the most powerful response is simply to be still, to listen, and to choose how we will engage with the world from a place of grounded awareness. Silence is often misunderstood, viewed as a void or an absence, but in truth it holds immense power. It's a force that not only allows us to protect our inner peace, but also invites us to cultivate self-awareness and personal boundaries. When we choose silence, we are not retreating or withdrawing from the world. Instead, we are creating space for ourselves, for clarity, and for reflection. In a world that is constantly demanding more from us, choosing silence becomes an act of self-preservation, a way to reclaim our power and our peace. It is in those moments of stillness that we allow ourselves the time to process our emotions, thoughts, and reactions without the need to immediately fill the space with words or actions. The ability to remain silent in the face of external pressure or conflict is not weakness, but rather a testament to our emotional intelligence and strength. Often, the instinctive reaction to challenges or conflict is to speak up, to defend ourselves, or to explain our actions. However, by choosing silence, we are not allowing ourselves to be swept away by the heat of the moment or the emotional intensity of the situation. Instead, we create a pause, a moment of stillness that allows us to regain control over our responses. In those moments, we are better able to observe the situation objectively, without the clouding influence of immediate emotions. This ability to step back and hold our ground in silence enables us to make decisions with more clarity and intention, rather than reacting impulsively. Silence also protects us from unnecessary drama and emotional turbulence. In our fast-paced, often chaotic lives, it's easy to get caught up in the whirlwind of other people's expectations, opinions, and demands. We may feel pressured to speak, to defend, or to engage in situations that drain our energy or disrupt our peace. By choosing silence, we assert our boundaries and protect our emotional well-being. Silence allows us to withdraw from unnecessary conflicts or conversations that may not serve us, helping us preserve our mental and emotional resources. In moments when the world feels overwhelming, silence becomes a sanctuary, a place of refuge where we can retreat to recalibrate, center ourselves, and restore our sense of balance. Beyond its role in protecting our peace, silence serves as a profound form of communication. In a society that often values words above all else, we tend to forget that silence, too, can communicate deeply. Silence in a conversation can convey understanding, respect, and presence in ways that words may not fully capture. When we choose to remain silent, especially in moments when we could easily speak, we offer the other person space to be heard and understood. In doing so, we create an environment of empathy and openness. Silence becomes an invitation for deeper connection, one that doesn't require constant verbal interaction, but instead fosters the kind of listening and presence that forms the foundation of meaningful relationships. Furthermore, silence holds the power to disrupt assumptions and challenge the expectations placed upon us. In a world where everyone seems to have an opinion or a response for everything, remaining silent can be unsettling to others. It challenges their expectations and forces them to reconsider their own assumptions about how we should behave or react. This disruption is not a negative one, rather, it is an opportunity for growth and reflection. Silence shifts the focus away from the external noise and redirects attention inward, both for ourselves and for others. It asks us all to consider why we feel the need to speak, to respond, or to engage in ways that may not align with our true selves. By choosing silence, we reclaim our autonomy and invite others to do the same.